Yeah.
I never created
So why don't I welcome everybody? Maybe before we start, just remind people to silence your phones, please. So I want to welcome everyone to this panel discussion, roundtable discussion. My name is Andrea Adis-Vasquez. I'm the Managing Director of the Graduate Center's New Media Lab. And with me is Aaron Knoll, who is the web developer. We're all from the Graduate Center, the CUNY Graduate Center. Aaron is the web developer at the New Media Lab. Chanel is a doctoral student in environmental psychology. Claire is a doctoral student in urban education and also our digital research fellow. And you'll hear more about all of us, actually, later. As you know, we build this as a roundtable discussion. So I'll make some introductory remarks, and we'll sort of hand off the discussion to some of the students to lead a discussion with you. And what's so wonderful is that I recognize so many faces here. We have some current students who are at the lab now. We have students who were here 5 and probably, dare I say, even 10 years ago. So, as the title suggests, we've been around for around a dozen years now. And founded by physicist Brian Schwartz and historian Steve Breyer. They had the idea of helping CUNY sort of do some catch-up work in terms of digital technology at the university, and formed the New Media Lab as a facility, a place where students and faculty could bring their ideas, their creativity, their digital projects, their thinking about using these new formats in academia. We bounced around for a while. We were launched here actually at Baruch College, bounced around to a couple of different locations. And in 2000, we ended up in the X level of the Graduate Center, which is actually 2 floors below ground level. We just had a little maze because it was not easy to find us. And sometimes we said, well, there was a lot of mice down there, and they weren't really renovated. We had all kinds of good excuses for why students and faculty were not knocking down the doors immediately when we showed up at the Graduate Center. And the way it ran sort of more at the beginning was there were certain projects that were part of NEH grants, National Endowment for the Humanities grants of the American Social History Project, and we would hire doctoral students to work on these projects. And Brian Schwartz, the physicist, physics professor, would bring in his students and come up with these odd ideas for things that they really should do visual animations, do some recreations of. In other words, he was trying to push the boundaries of his discipline. We were trying to push the boundaries of our discipline with the support of Grant, being able to pay students a little bit to come in and think about their own, their own work, their own projects. And that's sort of a lot of what happened in the beginning. We had, then students did start coming in. Art history student would think about what, how would he want to do something different than what's traditionally done in art history. Many different fields, many different people were thinking then. Now, let's remember back a dozen years ago, you had to come in with your own ease with technology. You had to come in thinking, okay, I'll tackle HTML. Or, for our 3D project, which this is, this background image here, I don't know if it shows something else, but Yuri Artemov, as some of you may remember, was a physics student. And his dissertation was on vortices and superconductors. And I tell this story because traditionally he would write, it would be sort of mathematical. His whole dissertation would be, who knows how many volumes of equations to justify his research. And instead of only doing that, he created these beautiful animations of all of the things that were happening instead. We had a physics student who was doing traffic, and she created this animation of traffic, of the movement of traffic and solving the problems of traffic in New York City. So we went from requiring that students, and the physics students had programming experience. Some of the other students who came in to work on our 3D projects really had a lot of startup time. It was 6 months learning a 3D program before you could create a model of something. So I'm just sort of trying to set the stage for how different it was a dozen years ago, as many of you probably know already. So we look back, and in thinking about this, I was actually, for today, we want to think about what questions are the same that we're asking now with those of us who are trying to push the boundaries of the use of new media and digital technologies in education, and what questions are different. What's different, what's the same? And I look back at a few of our promotional material, and some of you may remember we had a big event called CUNY Wired, probably in 2001. We had an NML Expo in 2005, and we were part of the Digital University in 2010, a wonderful conference at the Graduate Center. And some of the enduring questions that we felt were, how will digital technologies impact academic research done at the doctoral level? That's what we were concerned about at the Graduate Center. Questions of academic authority, new publishing platforms and paradigms, more democratic tools, methodologies, and systems we're working with, and of course teaching. We had many fewer students coming in with fully conceived projects, as I just mentioned. So now, just to bring you a little quickly up to date, we have students coming in every month with ideas in many different disciplines. I think I even printed something out, I think I brought it, but we probably have 20 or 25 different departments at the Graduate Center where students have thought of really interesting and creative ways to use new media. So we have some of these questions. We have so what's, thinking about what's the constants when I look back at this. Generally, students embracing new technologies, students coming up with creative, smart, and important ways to deepen and enhance their academic work. Students striving to make their work more interesting for themselves and more relevant through the use of new technologies and tools and approaches. Students striving to get their advisors and faculty to understand and approve of the academic work that they're doing by using new technologies. So these are things that we're constantly challenging and addressing and discussing, both at these events and in our work every day at the lab. We're hoping kind of to replicate today a little bit of what we do at the lab, which is have these monthly meetings. And one student said to me recently when she came to me, she'd only been to a couple, but we have faculty, we have staff, we have administrators, and we have a lot of students, random people around the building who are using new technology. And at the end of the meeting, she just said, well, I said, we're at the meeting. She said, well, how'd you get all these people to talk to each other? And what's nice about the lab, and we hope to also share today, is the sort of breakdown of some of the hierarchies that do exist in all of our colleges, and in the way we are forced sometimes to behave. And really think out of the box and think creatively and think democratically about how we envision the university and envision our teaching and envision our academic research using these exciting new tools. So I'm going to hand off now to Claire, Chandel, and Aaron, unless I've forgotten something that you want to remind me that I was supposed to say, but I would like you guys to kind of lead more of a discussion about
Well, all right, sure. I mean, so just a brief introduction, like to what Claire and my work, what we do kind of on a daily basis in the media lab is we're kind of, I like to think of us in some ways kind of like technology advisors. I think it's a difficult way of expressing what we do, but Claire speaks with faculty, I speak primarily with students, and they come to us with ideas, and what we do is we try to help them find a way to make their ideas actually happen. We talk about, something as simple as, what tools are available to do it, but also kind of make connections between, are we using similar methodologies as other students? Are we from similar disciplines? Are our work in similar areas? So I kind of see, you know, my role as kind of helping facilitate connections in the lab on a daily basis.
So to sort of segue into a conversation about, you know, what's happening now at the lab, there are 2 points that we wanted to highlight. One is this sort of real collaborative atmosphere and, you know, conversations across disciplines. And the second thing, which I'm going to speak about, is increasing faculty involvement in the New Media Lab. This takes a couple different forms. We have a number of faculty members who come to our monthly meetings. And since September 2010, when I was hired as a digital media fellow, we've also have had faculty members sort of conceiving of their own digital projects. And I thought I would describe a little bit of how I've approached this work and sort of the logistics of my work with faculty members. So the folks who I work with are in the humanities and the social sciences primarily. Right now I'm working with faculty in English, environmental psych, urban education, and art history. And you know, when I work with faculty, I have adopted what I think of as like a participatory approach. And what I mean by that is, I mean, of course this is difficult as a graduate student, but I really try to sort of equalize the power relations in my work with faculty members and really engage in collaborative thinking with them. So, you know, I try not to position myself as a technology assistant or a helper, you know, so much as a person who's really able to engage in these sort of high-level conceptual conversations with them and help them, you know, clarify their thinking about how they can really incorporate these technologies into their research and into the methodologies and into the representation of their research. So, you know, typically I have faculty members who come and meet with me on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. We'll sit sort of side by side in the New Media Lab. I have dual monitors and dual keyboards and mice. And you know, we talk through the problems at hand as they arise, and I do the best job I can to sort of like troubleshoot and make my process of, you know, how I solve problems related to technology sort of transparent to them so that they can really become, really develop a sense of independence, you know, around their use of technology. And one thing that I'd like to highlight about this is that I really wouldn't be able to work in this way, which I think is very effective with faculty, were it not for the larger collaborative nature of the New Media Lab space. You know, after I have a conversation with a faculty member and they leave the lab, I'll typically sort of turn around and speak to some of the other folks in the lab and share with them, you know, what were the issues that were raised that I couldn't resolve. You know, Aaron and I, and Sean Bell and I, a lot of the folks in this room will, you know, really grapple with these issues. And, you know, I think it's the interdisciplinarity and the sort of spectrum of expertise in terms of the kinds of technology skills that people are actually bringing that allow me to work with faculty effectively. You know, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a developer, I'm not a web designer. You know, I'm able to sort of know a bit about these things, you know, because I'm building off the knowledge that everyone in the lab brings. What I really am able to do, though, is engage with faculty in language that they're comfortable with and sort of translate that, you know, and talk to them about technology in language that is familiar to them and moves their thinking ahead. So I'd just like to show an excerpt from a video of one of the faculty who I work with, Wendy Luttrell. Yes, who had a family emergency and couldn't make it here, but we have a very nice video of her speaking about the work.
I'm a sociologist, and I teach in the urban education and social psychology departments here at the Graduate Center. The project, which I've been calling Children Framing Childhoods, is a longitudinal study. It starts in 5th grade and follows the group of young people through their last year of high school. Young people, I think, need to be more in control of the image that is presented of them, whether it be in the media writ large or it be in academic research. And so my research, since working with pregnant teens, has focused on trying to find ways for them to present themselves as they would like to be seen, to use cameras as a means, both literally and figuratively, to put the lens on life in the hands of the young people. Their photographs and the way that they talk about the photographs provide an insight into the way that they want themselves portrayed, as well as how they see the world around them. The idea is to really build up an archive of images as they change and as they see the world around them changing. So here's an example of a series of images that the young people chose to present to a public audience. To use new media in teacher professional development is really huge. Being able to have the images and hearing the kids speak at the same time allows educators to sit for a while and reflect on how their eyesight has been pressed into certain ways of seeing young people that isn't necessarily aligned with how young people want to be seen. And to do that in the privacy of their own space and realize these things in a way that is less threatening. The idea of a website archive, while it was a dream in my mind, could not possibly be put together by a person like me with the skills that I have as what some people would call, and I'm not sure I like this term, but a digital immigrant as opposed to a digital native. So the New Media Lab really provided the space, the support, the enthusiasm for making the archive both accessible in some ways for my own teaching, but also to the kids themselves to be able to be in charge of how they are represented.
So I'm, of course, happy sort of in the conversation part of our discussion to talk at more length about how Wendy uses the archive in teacher professional development, and about how she uses it in her teaching. But just very briefly, I just like to describe how she, this last comment that she made about using the archive for her teaching and the opportunity this offers to doctoral students. Kato actually here, who I don't know if maybe you'll see to this point, and I took this course with Wendy last year called Visual Methods. And I think it's really a unique opportunity that, that we had as doctoral students to engage with the data set of an experienced scholar, and to really, it was sort of like an apprenticeship opportunity. And I think that this is rare in the social sciences. I think this is one of the sort of unique contributions of faculty involvement in the New Media Lab. So I'll end on that note.
And I think now we're going to open it up a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about the collaborative nature of the lab. But instead of you know, kind of me saying, oh, we're a great collaborative space. I was hoping, you know, there's many students here from the New Media Lab, so, you know, hopefully, you know, in their own words could kind of share, you know, their experiences with the lab as a collaborative space. But first, I'd like to invite Shondell to begin. You're on the panel, so.
My name's Shondell, and I'm an environmental psychology doctoral student, and we think about how humans are in relation to the spaces they inhabit. And the New Media Lab is a place where I found collaboration happens just in conversations. The space itself facilitates interaction and a sharing of knowledge, and I guess just even philosophical debates. I've had a lot with Aaron and Claire as well. I have to say, Ricardo as well, we've shared, and Tony, actually, everyone in the lab. Yeah, so.
They don't do any work.
Yeah, we just talk about the ideas of what we should be doing. But I mean, there's that collaborative aspect. I don't know how many, I think we now have some collaborative projects that are happening, students that are now working on projects together. But for me, the greatest value is being able to talk about technology. So like Antonia uses Omeka, and I started using Omeka, so I picked her brain, and then I also shared what I learned from her with someone else. And then we've all kind of taken this archival database into different realms and noticed different glitches and different strengths, and we have this expertise that's grown out of being able to talk to each other in a space that's not divided by little cubicles, or we're not forward-facing, kind of like how we're interfacing this way, we're the authorities and you're coming to learn. We all have the knowledge, we're all here, right? So that's one of my favorite things about the lab. And then there's also a collaborative aspect that comes out of having the projects themselves. The digital projects that we create facilitates conversation with our advisors. So as a doctoral student, my department is very open. I'm very, very fortunate to be in my department, but there are some technophobes. So having my archive with my auto ads, I study auto ads in National Geographic. I'm able to show them the ads in the groupings that I have imagined, and it allows my professors to have access to the actual data without me having pre-digested it. So their knowledge base, which in some ways is more extensive than mine, coupled with my new expertise of my project, means that we have conversations that facilitate my writing in a way that doesn't misdirect me to what I've heard other people have. So the collaboration aspect is really neat, and I find that they're opening more today to the digital projects. So my dissertation will include digital media, and they're like, okay, so I understand. So it's a nice flavor of the media lab adds to what I'm doing.
Cara, would you like to add something?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Caro. I'm in the Social Personality Program, and I am also affiliated with the Public Science Project there, which is a group of people from the Graduate Center and other campuses that are interested in doing work that is community-based or participatory research, kind of research that combines action, community education, and kind of investigation in the traditional sense of asking questions and answering them. So we're very interested in producing knowledge that is relevant, useful, collectively owned, and immediately deployable. So in my experience at the New Media Lab, what I've found is language to talk about the use of technology in this process of producing knowledge that is participatory, that is for social justice, right? As opposed to just having to say, as opposed to not having the language and therefore sounding just like it's activism, right? Like there are, in my own research, for instance, I've previously worked with young people whose parents have been incarcerated and now are going to college. And the work we did involved video, because it was very important for them to tell their stories in ways that they had control, right? And that is response to method, response to the usability of the knowledge. But I didn't, that was my initial kind of delving into the use of technology as method. And it was fine, but I wasn't at the New Media Lab yet, so I don't think I couldn't have written about the process. All I could say was, we're using youth video, right? And that was kind of it. In the project I'm working on right now, my dissertation, I'm doing a participatory documentation of a particular international activist movement for peace and nonviolence that happened in 2009. And I am working with an interdisciplinary group that involves our artists, activists, and programmers. And what we're doing is try to play with ways of documenting and asking questions about the experience of nonviolent activism. So I came to the New Media Lab with data, but without knowing what to do with my digital data, right? I had images and I had 200 interviews that were videoed, and we had a website with them. But I knew that the information had been produced to be used online, right? So we decided to collect data in the project that could be used online immediately by people who were on the ground. Well, what I learned at the New Media Lab is that other people had expertise first in building archives. And from the social sciences, I can understand an archive as an open database, right? So that I go into a community, I collect data, and then I don't take it away for 3 years and come back with it, all analyzed, when the issue is not relevant anymore. But you gather the data, you put it out in a database that is digital, and it's there for people to use for their own purposes while you also do analysis. So that has been fantastic. The other thing is the use of digital exhibits as a way of doing analysis that layers different types of data. Audio, visual, text, so that I can do analytical work with people who are not interested in reading a 40-page, right, description of what a video or a photo looks like, because that's not interesting to them. So we've used it also for analysis, for participatory analysis and dissemination. All of that knowledge I have learned in talking to people who are doing digital humanities work or that are kind of experimenting with other ways of doing analysis and dissemination with new media. So it's been a fantastic experience for me.
And for those of you who aren't in the Media Lab, we have spoken with the students. There are clients in the audience, so that's why Kara is so well prepared for ours. But I think this is really interesting because Kara's been at the lab for nearly 3 years right now. Wendy came to the lab last year with a very similar sort of project looking at using a video analysis as a methodology. So these are the kind of connections that, although we very intentionally structure right here, these are the kind of serendipitous connections that just emerge out of our everyday collaboration in the lab. I wanted to ask Antonia, did you want to?
Of course. We're happy to be here. I love the New Media Lab. To me, it's been a place of creativity and inspiration. I found made good friends in the lab, and it's really helped me move my work in a positive direction. I am an anthropology PhD student. I'm an archaeologist, and I work in Turkey, Sinop, Turkey, in the coast of the Black Sea, and I'm specializing in zoo archaeology. So I analyze animal remains, primarily fish, so I work on coastal sites. And I came into the lab my first year at the grad center with already, not physically bringing in, but I have a collection of bones, fish bones that I've been collecting from the region as a reference collection so that I can identify archaeological remains properly. That's a common practice for zoo archaeologists. You usually have a reference collection. But when I began this research, I realized there was no collection that I could access for the Black Sea, so I started to build my own physical collection. And I looked at the New Media Lab because I was hoping to not only have this physical collection, but to digitally scan these bones or take images and perhaps play with 3D images, which I'm still working on, but have it online so I can, A, reference my collection overseas. If I need to identify a bone, I could get a high-res scan, and it would help me in the field. And also to share with my zoo archaeology community. To me, it's a really important reference that other zoo archaeologists could take advantage of. I'm really into collaborating with other scholars. So I came into the lab with this basic idea, and I didn't know how I was going to actually really translate this to a digital project. And I started off with WordPress, and I learned WordPress. I did use WordPress to put my bone collection up. But then through meetings and such, I realized Omeka would be actually a better program for me because I wanted really to create a virtual museum. And that's, I'm still building this site, but it's really moving in a great direction. I not only now have bones online, but I'm also thinking of my work differently. I'm taking ideas, maybe they're just papers, or maybe there will be eventual chapters of my dissertation, just topics that I'm interested in within my research, and creating virtual exhibitions online. So for example, I'm interested in Black Sea anchovy, in Turkish is hamsi, and how many Black Sea Turks, especially in Trabzon, feel that this fish is part of their culture. It's a really important food item for them. And I've been looking at the hamsi identity and also how climate change and overfishing has affected the population of this fish. So this was just some sort of topic that I was interested in exploring. It's actually not really archaeological, but it ties in, and I thought, and I've been building a sort of a virtual exhibition on this. And then by talking in the lab, collaborating, Shanzel actually invited me to speak at a conference dealing with nature and environment and such, and I was able to meet new friends and contacts and move my research in other directions. So that speaks to the collaborative nature of the department as well. And the last thing I would say is that it's been so inspiring that I've actually, besides this main Black Sea fish, in addition to fish, also mollusks, shells, I have Black Sea fish and mollusk collection. I also use WordPress to build a site for my archaeological field project, the teams project. So we have a public face for our work, and it has really helped us spread the word about our research, bring in some collaborators, and just to promote it in general. And also my latest project I've built, and I'm still building, a wiki. And this, my advisor, who has been very supportive of my work, is really excited about. We're actually working on the wiki together, in a way. It's on Sinop archaeology, and what we're looking to do is have locals go in any language they want, like Turkish, whatever, and write about places within the Sinop region, about certain, perhaps archaeological sites, topics within the region, and basically create this space for public engagement and help us really work with the locals in terms of our project, which we're really excited about. And actually next month, my advisor, Alexander Bauer, he's based at Queens, him and I are going to attend the Historical Archaeology Conference in Philly, and we're going to present this wiki and a paper he's written about wikis and public engagement in archaeology. So I'm really excited because not only has the Media Lab helped me make my hopes of putting my physical bone collection online a reality, I've also been inspired to do this other WordPress site and build a wiki.
I emphasize one part of what Antonio was just saying, because I'm sure we'll go in this direction a little bit, which has to do with faculty involvement, the different ways that faculty are involved. And I think when you first came to the lab, it was really about her own project, her own work, her own bones. And Antonia, needless to say, came with so much enthusiasm and creativity and multiple ideas. But when I talk, we really encourage students to go make sure that their faculty members and their advisors are on board. I don't know how many faculty members are in the room. I'll ask that in a minute. But when Antonia did approach her faculty advisor, I guess it was Bauer, his response was, "Oh, can you do a few that would include us? Why not include all of our research? Can you do that for us, basically?" And we had an interesting conversation about that. And but that's one example, right, of what happened with her work and her model. I would like to hear other people about. We've had all kinds of different stories about faculty involvement, but I'd love to hear other.
Just a quick question. Did you draw upon the New Media Lab's vast experience in scanning dead fish?
Would you like to explain that reference?
Yeah, this is actually part of the reason that I joined the New Media Lab in 1999, is that they had just scanned a dead fish to use in the Lost Museum's 3D visualization of the fish, of the mermaid from the Barnum Museum. Innovative uses of technology.
I wanted to show this earlier. Maybe we'll just do it very quickly because that was one of the things that Luke worked on. But several.
I showed it behind you while you were talking.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I was scrolling through all the
And
animations.
maybe
Don't worry.
what about Zach? Could we jump to a minute? I would like you to hear a minute of Zach Selvas, who's a music composition student. And what's interesting about that is that, as we said, a dozen years ago, 3D, we created a 3D model. We did a pan of it, and we called it a 3D experience. Well, of course, we know it wasn't really a 3D experience. The paths were all predetermined. Someone could click and see this wonderful space that we spent years developing and building, and they don't look like, you know, they're sort of aesthetically much more pleasing than most of the 3D stuff we see now. But how did the notion of using 3D in academic work and in research and developing a 3D product change over these dozen years? We had Zach, who was a music composition student, came in, again, also with a few different projects, but one of them, this is on CUNY TV, did a short piece about the lab. But are we at about a minute in? Okay, great.
Music composition program here in Grad Generally, what I've been doing here for the past few years is working with 3D game space to construct interactive sound pieces for multiple people, whether they're in Korea or Europe or the US. They can all go into the same virtual space and experience and interact with the sonic world. I've always, as a composer, wanted to write music for space, where in order to experience the music, you had to move through space rather than sit passively in an audience. And I've never really had the resources or the expertise to do it. The Media Lab gave me the opportunity to learn the skills required and gave me the time and the place to do those things. So I have a prototype. So let me just work around with it. So in terms of sound, some of the things that I'm exploring are whether sound sounds intentional or not intentional, or another sense, you have a bunch of objects making sound by themselves, don't do much, but together they sound expressive like a chamber group. So that's kind of sonically what I'm interested in space. I'm also using that same approach to game space for pedagogical purposes. I'm building a 3D virtual orchestra inside of a networked game space, and my students can drop into that space together or alone and explore the instruments without any rules. The only assignment being just do what you want. Pick up the...
So we see that at the lab, the use of 3D has come a very long way. But
I was going to say, I mean, Andrea just brought up a lot of points. I was wondering, Ethan, if you wanted to jump in here. I mean, Andrea was talking about advisors and the link between. I'll let you talk a little bit.
Well, if you